Welcome to Time-Forged Stories. China just moved warships within 100 miles of the Philippines. Everyone's asking, how does a small country survive against a superpower? But here's what nobody's telling you: the Philippines already did this. In 1281, the most unstoppable military force in human history invaded the Philippines. An empire that had never lost a war. The Mongols conquered Russia, China, the Middle East, and half of Europe. They came for the Philippines next. And the Philippines destroyed them. This is the strategy that stopped the greatest invasion force ever assembled, and it would work again in 2026. The strategy ancient Filipinos used is so effective that modern military analysts are quietly studying it right now. China knows this history. That's why they're terrified, and that's why both Beijing and Washington buried this story from every history book. Today, I'm exposing the ancient Filipino defense strategy that defeated the greatest invasion force in history, and why it would work again in 2026. Before we go further, our goal on this video is to get 500 likes, and I need you to drop your reaction in the comments. Are you worried about a South China Sea war? Do you think the Philippines can defend itself? Let me know below, and subscribe because we're exposing military history that governments don't want you to understand. Now, let's talk about what's actually happening right now in 2026. China has built 7 artificial islands in the South China Sea. These aren't just islands. They're military fortresses with runways, missile batteries, and radar stations. Some are less than 100 miles from the Philippine coast. Chinese warships patrol areas that international law says belong to the Philippines. Chinese aircraft violate Philippine airspace weekly. The United States has defense treaties with the Philippines. But everyone's asking, will America actually fight China over some rocks in the ocean? Or will they let the Philippines fall, like they let Ukraine struggle alone? Filipino military strategists are panicking. The Chinese military has 2 million active troops. The Philippines has 150,000. China has aircraft carriers, stealth fighters, hypersonic missiles. The Philippines has patrol boats and some donated equipment. On paper, this looks like a massacre waiting to happen. The Philippines can't win a conventional war against China. Everyone knows it. China knows it. That's why they're so bold. But paper doesn't tell the whole story. And China remembers something that modern Filipinos forgot. Let me take you back to 1281, the year the Mongols came. By 1281, the Mongol Empire controlled more territory than any empire in human history. Genghis Khan's grandson, Kublai Khan, ruled from Korea to Eastern Europe. They had just conquered the Song Dynasty, the most advanced civilization on Earth at the time. China, with its million-man armies and sophisticated weapons, had fallen. Kublai Khan looked south. He saw the Philippine archipelago, rich in gold, strategically positioned, controlling trade routes between China and the Spice Islands. He wanted it. The Mongols sent diplomatic envoys first. This was standard procedure. Submit to Mongol rule or be destroyed. Every kingdom that refused was annihilated. The Mongols didn't lose. The Philippine chieftains, the Datus, received the Mongol envoys, and they sent them back with a message. No. The Mongols prepared the largest naval invasion force assembled up to that point in history. Hundreds of ships, tens of thousands of warriors. These weren't just Mongol horsemen. They had Chinese engineers, Korean shipbuilders, siege weapons, gunpowder. This was the combined military technology of all of Asia. They sailed for the Philippines. Everyone expected the same result as every other Mongol invasion: total conquest within weeks. It didn't happen. And here's why. The ancient Filipinos didn't try to fight the Mongols the way the Mongols wanted to fight. This is the first critical lesson that applies to 2026. The Mongols excelled at open-field battles, massive cavalry charges, coordinated infantry, siege warfare. They had perfected the art of overwhelming force. Every kingdom that tried to meet them head-on in conventional battle was destroyed. The Filipinos looked at this and said, "We're not doing that." Instead, they used the geography. The Philippines isn't one landmass. It's 7,600 islands, thousands of hidden coves, narrow channels, shallow reefs. The Mongols had big ships designed for open ocean and river warfare. The Filipinos had balangays, smaller, faster, shallow draft outrigger vessels that could navigate reefs and coastlines the Mongol ships couldn't reach. When the Mongol fleet approached, the Filipinos didn't meet them at sea in a grand naval battle. They disappeared into the coastline. The Mongols sailed into channels they thought were safe, and Filipino raiders struck from hidden positions. Hit and run, strike and vanish. Never give the enemy the battle they want. The Mongol ships were powerful but slow. By the time they turned to respond to an attack, the Filipino boats were gone, hidden in channels too shallow for Mongol vessels to follow. The Mongols couldn't bring their superior numbers to bear because they couldn't catch the enemy. This is guerrilla naval warfare. The Filipinos invented it 700 years before modern military doctrine gave it a name. But it wasn't just tactics, it was intelligence. The Filipinos knew these waters, every reef, every current, every seasonal wind pattern. They'd been navigating these seas for thousands of years. The Mongols were foreigners in unfamiliar territory. Filipino scouts tracked every Mongol ship. Local villagers reported movements. When the Mongols tried to land, the Filipinos knew exactly where they'd come ashore and were waiting. Not with large armies, but with ambushes. The Mongols would land troops, establish a beachhead, and march inland expecting to find villages to conquer. Instead, they found empty settlements. The Filipinos had evacuated, taking all food and supplies. The Mongol troops were in hostile jungle with no supply lines. Then the attacks came, not frontal assaults. Nighttime raids, sniper attacks from the jungle, poisoned wells, sabotaged equipment. The Mongols couldn't defend against an enemy they couldn't see. And here's the critical part that modern military analysts focus on. The Filipinos made occupation impossible. The Mongols could win battles. They were the best in the world at that. But the Filipinos never gave them a battle to win. They gave them an endless bleeding guerrilla war where every day meant more casualties, more disease, more demoralization, and no victory in sight. The Mongol commanders realized something terrifying. They could burn every village, kill every fighter they found, occupy every beach, and they still wouldn't control the Philippines. The moment they moved to the next island, Filipino resistance would spring back up behind them. To truly conquer the Philippines, they'd need to occupy 7,600 islands simultaneously. They'd need permanent garrisons on islands spread across thousands of miles of ocean. They'd need supply lines stretching from China through hostile waters. They'd need enough troops to patrol jungle and coastline where the enemy knew every hiding spot. It was impossible, and the Mongols knew it. After months of grinding guerrilla warfare, the Mongol invasion force withdrew. They never came back. This was one of the only times in the 13th century that the Mongol Empire attempted a major conquest and failed. The Philippines remained free, not because they won a great battle, but because they made conquest so costly and occupation so impossible that even the Mongols gave up. Now let's apply this to 2026. China's military is vastly superior to the Philippines on paper, but the same geographic reality that stopped the Mongols still exists. The Philippines is still 7,600 islands. China still has to project power across ocean. The Philippines still knows these waters better than anyone. If China invades, they can't just take Manila and declare victory. They'd need to occupy an archipelago. That means garrison troops on hundreds of islands, patrol thousands of miles of coastline, defend supply lines through waters where every fishing boat could be a scout, control populations that speak languages Chinese occupiers don't understand, fight an insurgency that can strike anywhere and disappear into terrain they know intimately. This is the nightmare scenario Chinese military planners actually worry about. Modern military strategists call it anti-access area denial, or A2/AD. The Philippines doesn't need to sink Chinese aircraft carriers in open battle. They need to make the cost of occupation so high that China decides it's not worth it. And the Philippines has modern tools the ancient Filipinos didn't have. Anti-ship missiles that can be hidden on any island and fired at approaching fleets. Small, fast attack boats with guided weapons. Drones, thousands of cheap drones that can strike and disappear. Mines in shallow waters Chinese ships can't navigate. Mobile coastal defense systems that shoot and relocate before retaliation. This is the modern version of the Balangay strategy. Don't meet the enemy in the battle they want. Make them fight your fight. But there's something even more powerful: the human factor. The ancient Filipinos didn't fight because their government ordered them to. They fought because someone invaded their home. That's a level of motivation no occupying army can match. Chinese soldiers would be fighting for what? Their government's territorial claims. That's not the same as defending your family's island. History shows this matters more than technology. The United States had overwhelming military superiority in Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan. How did those occupations work out?